I've been waiting on the sunset, bills on my mindset, I can't deny it. Getting higher, higher than my income, income's breadcrumbs. I've been trying to survive. The glow that the sun gets right around sunset helps me realize that this is just a journey. Drop your worries, you are gonna turn out fine. Oh, you turn out fine. Fine, oh, you turn out fine. But you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. You gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. I know it's hard, to remember sometimes, but you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey, 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 hey. I got my hands in my pockets, kicking these rocks. It's kinda hard to watch this life go by. I'm buying into skeptics, skeptics mess with the confidence in my eyes. I'm seeing all the angles, thoughts get tangled. I start to compromise my life and my purpose. Is it all worth it? Am I gonna turn out fine? Oh, you turn out fine. Fine, oh, you turn out fine. But you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. You gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. I know it's hard, to remember sometimes, but you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey, hey, hey. Only rainbows after rain, the sun will always come again, and it's a circle, circling around again. It comes around again. I say only rainbows after rain, the sun will always come again, and it's a circle, circling around again. It comes around, but you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. You gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. I know it's hard, to remember sometimes, but you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. And keep your head up, and you can let your head down, and keep your head up, and you can let your head down, and keep your head up, and you can let your head down. Listen,
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are connecting from today. Thank you so much for being part of this Hacking HR live series chat. We've had a number of incredible guests as part of our live chats, as part of our show. Brilliant, talented people sharing their insights, their ideas about the books they have written to make us, to make all of us better. I am hoping that if you are connecting to our Hacking HR live chat series for the first time, you go to our website and you check out the many other conversations we've had over the past couple of months. Go to hackinghr.io. We have all of them posted in there. Great, great conversations. Please let us know where you are connecting from. If you are watching this live on any of our social media channels, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, please let us know where you are connecting from. It would be amazing to know where everybody is watching this conversation from. And if you have any questions, anything that you want to bring to the attention of the audience, to the attention of those of us in the on screen, please post it in the chat. We keep an eye on the chat. We try to do, or I try to do as much as possible to look at your comments and your questions and bring them to the attention of my guests. So please let us know where you're connecting from. And I am incredibly excited about the conversation I am about to have. I am not yelling a Black woman's guide to navigating the workplace. We are going to have a fantastic conversation, and I am very excited to welcome now Elizabeth to the screen. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm good. I was looking at the chat.
I knew you were doing that. How are you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing great. How are you this morning? I love to see the chat get all the comments and everyone say good morning, everybody. So yeah, thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And one of the to me, one of the most beautiful things about the chat is to see how many, not only the people connecting, but where they are connecting from. So many different places, so many different cities and
Course.
countries. That is
Yeah,
always
it's
so exciting.
amazing.
And for that, I am,
Yeah.
well, thankful to technology for allowing us to do this.
Yeah.
So, how
Absolutely.
are you?
I'm doing good. This has been a roller coaster for me since December, but I'm loving every minute of it. I'm excited. I love to be in community. I love what you've built here, and I'm just blessed and happy to be joining you today.
Well, thank you so much, and I am excited and honored to have you with me today. And for those of us in the, for the people in the audience that are getting to know you for the first time today, can you please let us know more about you, what you've done, your career, anything you want
Sure.
to share with the community, and why you wrote "I Am Not Yelling"?
Yeah, very good question. My career has been pretty long. I've worked for 20 plus years in higher education. So I started like in the recruiting side, transitioned to faculty. I did faculty. I was a faculty instructor up until the pandemic. And I did that for the English department for like 15 years. So I teach anything in English. So all the way from composition, freshman students, all the way up until graduate level, I've taught. So that's really been my career. And then for the past decade, I worked as a director of instructional design and innovation. So basically L&D, learning and development for faculty and staff, but primarily building online classes. My love has always been online learning. So when I got on LinkedIn in 2020, it's like, hey, let me get more into my field because I didn't study instructional design. I just came from the faculty side as an online instructor, and I had been doing that at that point since 2008. So one of the people that there's not a lot of people that have done online learning since the very beginning, but I always loved online. I always loved
Yeah.
technology. I love the internet, everything about social media. I've always been a fan. So it just seemed natural to use internet for learning. And a lot of people were like, that's kooky. Like, what are you guys doing? So I was one of those people in the beginning that worked for University of Phoenix where they were like, y'all are just, what are y'all trying to do to education? Y'all going to destroy it. So I'd done that. And then getting on LinkedIn was really more to network in 2020. Like, let me
Mm.
just know more about my field, connect with other people that are more experienced and actually studied this for their career. And I just kind of fell into it. And then the pandemic happened, and I really wanted to speak about the digital divide and how students were impacted, and my experience for being in the classroom and what we need to do to support those type of students. And when George Floyd was murdered, it was like a blow to everything that I believed and thought about,
Mm.
just in general, about education, about the state of our country, about people's knowledge set about what was America and what was the Black experience in America and how did immigrants feel, myself being an immigrant, and a lot of times us being leveraged as well, anyone can do it. And I knew that that wasn't necessarily true. So I took to LinkedIn more to explain just the narrative of, because I teach American literature, what has been the experience of this country and how this country was formed, and why things are the way they are. And I started to see a pattern that was developing, particularly among Black women that were extremely accomplished, had been at the highest level of their field. I was talking to women across LinkedIn and started to realize, okay, women are having this experience, Black women particularly, and it's not just in higher education. I'm seeing the same pattern in business, in marketing, in media, in healthcare. Black women in particular, people of color in general, Black men very much so, because of the backlash from what we saw with George Floyd and everything else. It became apparent that that pattern was there as far as racial profiling. But for Black women, the experience was more of, I'm in the workplace and I'm educated, I have experience, I have the background, I'm not getting the promotion, I'm getting
Mm.
overlooked, I don't have a mentor, how do I succeed? And I really wanted to take my knowledge of research and what I do for my job, which is trying to find a pattern, trying to figure out, well, if something is happening and people aren't being successful, why is that? Because as an instructor, that's what I do for my job. I'm always looking at, what is the pattern? What does history say? What does the research say? And then what are the solutions? And that's really what it was to write the book. It was more, this is really for me. I call it my love letter to Black women, because I wanted to figure this out for myself as well, because I was having much the same issues in my corporate office. I went through a buyout. I was not getting a promotion. I didn't know if I was going to even have a job. And I started to feel like, wow, I'm in the corporate office. I had just gotten a small promotion, but really not what I deserved, and that wasn't getting the money I deserved. And I wanted to find out for myself too, like, why is this? Why is it that I feel that I'm accomplished, but in the corporate office, everyone that's coming in for this takeover is disregarding what I'm saying and doesn't seem to understand my rationale for what I'm doing or how I'm approaching my job. And I felt like there was a bigger pattern that needed to be explored. So that's where the book came from. It came from taking a look at the patterns and trying to find meaning and trying to find solutions and strategies for overcoming some of these situations.
Wow. Well, Elizabeth, once again, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story, and for everybody in the audience. We're going to be digging very deep into the work that Elizabeth did and continues to do, not only as part of her book, but as part of the work she does every day. So, Elizabeth, let me ask you this. When you started talking to Black women and you were thinking, "Whoa, these women are truly successful in their, in their careers from a perspective of all the effort they have put into going to school, into, either creating businesses or reaching the places in which they are today in their workplaces. But they should be at a different place. They should be promoted. They should be leading those companies, not where they are, even though that is already successful, perhaps in their view, but that's not where they should be. They should be way higher than that." What did you discover when you started on this sort of exploring why they were in that place and not where you think and they thought they should have been at that moment?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think everyone's actually, and no one's really actually asked me that. And that's an amazing question. And historically, there was a sense that, okay, we've seen this pattern. We know that Black women that are African descendant of slave, women of color, Black women that are immigrants to this country have a variety of different experiences, but that pattern of being very educated, knowing that they had to not just have a bachelor's degree, they need to have a master's degree, knowing that they couldn't come in and just have, just come in entry level and just work. They had to have an internship. So they had already been told by parents, mentors, the community, you have to go in with more. But what was happening was, based on the studies, even though they had way more education background, way more experience, all the internships and everything, which is the things that I had done, they were based on the studies by McKinsey, Lean In, we saw articles from Harvard Business Review, Business Insider. What was happening was, when they were doing the surveys and research on this, Black women were saying they were not getting the opportunities to showcase their work. Black women were saying that they were constantly experiencing microaggressions where people were asking to validate their knowledge, their skill set. And when you compare the percentages, when we were looking at, okay, Black women are saying this, what are white women saying? What are white men saying? Is Black women were saying 80% of the time this was happening, 60% of the time, as opposed to white women that were saying maybe 40% of the time or 50% of the time. And white men were saying 20% of the time. So it became evident there was a pattern where if someone goes into a work environment, if they're white male, they seem to, hey, this person comes in here, they're competent, they know their stuff, even if they only have a bachelor's degree. The same scenario where a Black woman, another woman of color, comes into a work environment, they're being asked to validate their experience. Who are you? Do you know what you're talking about? If there's a project, you're not ready for that project. They will give it to someone that maybe has less experience because they're a white man, because it's like, okay, this person appears to be competent. They call this unconscious bias, but from my experience and looking at also just the stats, it just became apparent that this was a pattern. It's something that someone has been told, and this is coming from media. It's coming from even looking at some of the studies. When I started to dig into the research, there were studies where people were even asked, well, if someone's name is Lakeisha as opposed to someone's name is Channing, which one do you think is more competent? And automatically people were leaning toward the name that appeared to be a white name. So all these studies have been done by Harvard and all these different organizations where it became apparent that these patterns were something that's ingrained from the education system, from media, from maybe parent, community, wherever it's coming from. People get a perception of this is what competence looks like. Even if we Google it, so AI even knows. If you Google it, the algorithm will tell you, because you Google doctor and a picture of a white man will show up. I mean, we all know, we've done it. Myself as an instructional designer, if I need to get stock pictures, it's difficult to get stock pictures of Black leaders. Now you're starting to see Canva and pick stock of some of those vendors, even Adobe, that's trying to do that now. But when I first started instructional design, if you want a picture of a CEO, you're not going to find a picture of a Black man in a suit leading a meeting. That was just what it was. And we would have to dig around the internet to find these pictures, because our students reflect, in South Florida, a very diverse background, and you want to show them, reflect them in an online learning environment. So we know that when we look at the studies, the reason why these women, I always say it's above me in that the psychiatry and the psychology of it, I don't understand, but I'm able to know that looking at the studies and the research and the patterns, that it's not a figment of our imaginations. Black women, it's not like we're going into these environments, it's like, oh, they're passing me over. They are passing you over, because if we're only a handful of Fortune 500 CEOs, if we're only 3% almost of any leadership organization across any sector, I was seeing that, okay, it's not just higher education, because I thought it was just higher ed. I'm in higher ed and maybe it's very elite. You have to have tons of education in order to succeed. What I was seeing was a pattern was across all industry, that Black folk, particularly Black women, were not represented and were not getting the chance to even try to show that they were competent, because initially it's like, no, you're not competent, and we're going to give it to somebody else, that opportunity.
Wow, that is, I mean, it's powerful to hear it, and because of all the work you've done doing the research, and actually when you mentioned about the images, my mind briefly went to a few months back. We were creating an event on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I was looking for images to showcase that event. And the hair of the people that I had to hire a designer and tell them, you gotta fix this to be more diverse, because that hair is not reflecting how people,
the hair wasn't given. The hair wasn't given, Enrique.
No, it was. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it.
You wasn't feeling it.
No. I was looking at it and I'm like, this is not right, man. I mean, like,
not giving.
I'm not getting it. But that's what you get when you go to Google and you research diversity images, right? It is either people that look the same, or even people who have different skin colors, but the rest of their features as a human being, what represents their ethnicity, their race. And I say this as a Latino as well, by the way. It's not there. So it's even those nuances, are so important to consider when you're talking about inclusion. Now, Elizabeth, let me ask you this. The data is there, the research is there. It's not just Elizabeth saying it. It's not just Enrique saying it. It's McKinsey, Harvard Business Review, psychological studies. And then you approach some of these conversations and you go to talk to somebody at work and they tell you, that's not happening. We're Lakeisha versus, versus Karen. No, we're treating them the same. Like there are no biases here when we think about a Lakeisha or a Karen.
Right.
So when you approach these conversations, there's a lot of resistance to understand, first of all, to believe in the data. And even if you did believe in the data because you think you're not biased or you're not engaging in discriminatory behaviors, you think that that's not happening. So the question to you is, how do you approach these conversations at work from the perspective of maybe a Black woman who is maybe telling your leader, something's going on here because I'm being passed over for promotions? Or maybe from the perspective of an advocate, say somebody in HR saying something's going wrong here because we're looking at the patterns of promotions and the real diversity is not happening. How do you approach those conversations?
That's a very good question as well. And I do get that question. For me, from being in the field of education, seeing it happen to myself, also from talking to Black women, I talked to when I did my podcast for Ebony, I did about 200 interviews and maybe half of them were Black women. So that pattern was very evident. I don't think I talked to any Black women, any Black people in general, but specifically Black women that didn't say they'd either encountered this had been something that they wanted to talk to leadership about. They knew it was a problem. I think for the book purposes, my thought process was, for me, I look at it on that micro as opposed to the macro level, even though for me, I'm a social justice advocate and I want to advocate for change at that national level, international even. I know that everybody's capacity is different. So some people are going into, and people say, I couldn't do what you do. And I'm like, don't do what I do, because of my situation is very different. I've been at my job 10 years and I'm very secure in my job. They really just know that I bring a lot of value to the table. They're not paying me what they should. And I know that to be true as well. But my thought process is I'm resigned to that because I know I have a greater purpose. But not everybody is trying to advocate for social justice or do this on this type of level. So my thought process is, how do you secure yourself? This idea of putting the mask on yourself first, making sure that you have yourself secure. And for a lot of people, that's survival, especially now. Eggs are $10. So it's like, you know that you got to keep your job. You want to be safe and secure. I've had people ask me, I don't want to put a target on my back. Don't put a target on your back, because obviously you have to keep your job. But I always also want to play this kind of like, not devil's advocate, but almost just pose this question. If you're afraid to go into these environments and just speak the truth, which is, hey, I'm getting passed over for promotions. I really feel that I deserve a raise. I really feel as though, you know, I need more clarity on what are the specific things I need to do in order to be better, because you're saying that I need improvements. Can you give me some steps as far as what you're looking for and what I can expect on the next 6 months, over the next year? I feel like that's not controversial. I've had that conversation with my manager, and I feel it's just a conversation. It's just, I need clarity, and I see that things that are happening, you don't have to be like going in there with a picket sign like, oh, Black Lives Matter, I'm going to have a riot. Because I think people tend to feel like because you're rowdy, you want me to go in and be rowdy. No, I do this on social media because that's a platform where I'm trying to
even if you're not rowdy, by the way, even if you're not rowdy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to yell, because we're not yelling.
Yeah.
So I feel as though that's really the framework. You're going into your manager saying, hey, I've done it to my manager. I need some time with you because I want to talk about what's been happening. I've noticed that this, and this is a pattern, and I need clarity about where my direction is. Do you see me as promotable? What are the things I need to do? Because I feel like having a dialogue with your manager should not be seen as now putting a target on my back because I want answers about how to get better in my job. I think sometimes people look at managers like, and I always say as a leader myself that has managed people, my job is not to manage widgets or products or service or sale or even customers. Your internal customer is your biggest customer. So I feel as though having honest conversations is important. Protecting your own peace is important. So being able to just say, you know what, I'm going into this environment. This is not the ideal environment for me, but how do I make myself happier in this environment until I figure out, is this a place I can be? Are they willing and open to these conversations that I'm having just with my manager? You're not going in to tell everyone, oh, it's racist in here. You're going to your manager and saying, hey, I see this is happening. This is a pattern. What do I need to do so that you can see me to be successful? And what does that look like for me? And how can you help me get there? Because that's what a leader's job is. A leader's job is to manage people. I mean, leader's job is to help you feel better and get better. And I feel it's just like in the classroom. If all my students fail, I failed as an instructor. Because I didn't give them what they needed to be successful. And I saw that in undergrad at a PWI at University of Florida. And for those that don't know, predominantly white institution versus HBCU. I had a lot of friends that went to HBCUs, and it's like their teachers really cared and wanted them to be successful. We see that at a lot of the Hispanic serving institutions as well, the HSIs, where it's like they know they're going to be nurtured and they know this is the framework. We want you to be successful. At the PWIs, it's more, hey, sink or swim. You're here for an education. If you get one, great. If you don't, that maybe you weren't strong enough. And I feel that PWI kind of mentality is what we see in corporate America. It's like, well, it's not my fault. Just do whatever you can. It's like, no, you're there to help people be successful. So I think from the conversations with the manager, I look at it like that. I frame it as, I'm coming to you for help. I want to be better. Tell me exactly what I need to do in order to be better. And I'm outcomes oriented because of my background as an educator. I need objectives. I need an assessment. I need an outcome. That's it. And it's not emotional. It's not you saying, oh, I'm going to have
it is a career conversation. It is a career conversation.
It's a real conversation. You tell me what to do. You're saying I got passed over. Channing just got here. He got a promotion. Maybe Channing is, you know, what does he have that I don't have? Can you map it out for me? That's the way I look at it. I look at it very abstractly, and maybe that's because I come from education. It's like there are Black students that don't do well. There are white students that do. Everyone has a different, and that's why we call it differentiation of learning, because not everyone comes in with the same skill set. If you went to school in the burbs, if you're English as a second language, if you're immigrant, if you're, you know, your parents didn't go to college, everyone has different things that make them maybe successful, not as successful, medium. So I have to navigate all of that as an instructor. A leader's the same. I hold my leaders' feet to the fire. Okay, you're saying I'm not going to get a promotion. When am I getting the promotion? Am I ever getting a promotion? And those are conversations I've had. And it's not like, oh, you're a racist. What are you going to do about this? This sucks. It's more like, okay, I know that in my mind that what's happening is wrong. it's got to be racism because it's only happening to me. I'm the only Black person in the C-suite. But that person, if you approach the sense of like, this is racism, I don't like this, I always feel like it goes back to those conversations. Well, why is this happening? I'm not a bad person. Why do you think that about me? And then it becomes emotional. And I try to take the emotion out of it. I already know what's happening because I see what you're doing. But at the end of the day, I need to get to pay my bills. I need to buy eggs that are $10. So how do I navigate that part? And how do I keep myself staying in a situation where people are gaslighting me and telling me, oh, that's not happening? So the book, really, a lot of it is about this is happening. Here are the stats. Here's what's, so you're not going into it like, oh my gosh, what do I do? This is awful. You're going in there like, well, this is what has happened. It's always happened. I'm not going to be able to change hearts and minds today. What do I do to secure myself so I can buy eggs for my kids on the weekend? And how do I navigate my mind, which has been telling me you don't belong here? You're not good enough. You don't have enough education. All of that is false. So I have the stats and everything to back that up. How do I go in there with unemotional now? Because I have all the research that tells me I'm in the right. I'm not going in there, oh my God, I'm going to boycott them. You don't have to do that because you already know what they're doing is wrong. There's nothing really to boycott. What you're boycotting is your emotional response to what they're doing. And I think that's where I got to the point of, I learned this really as an immigrant. I can't control how people treat me or how they act. You get picked on when you're coming from another country and you have a different accent and everyone's like, what are you doing? I can't control how people see me or react to me. I can control my emotion and my feeling about it. And what I started to do is I started to go in as a class clown. I would go in and I would start picking on people before they start picking on me. Because I was like, okay, I have to be more pro. Stop them from picking on me, but I will come with my zingers to disarm them. And I think it's the same thing in corporate America. You have to come in now. You don't care what they do to you. It's like you can throw a zinger at me. My zinger is after the meeting, I'm going to go talk to my boss and tell her that was unacceptable. And now she can shut you down. I'm not even going to talk to you about that microaggression because I'm going to let her know I'm not going to deal with this. And I've done this several times on my job. I think it's really empowering ourselves and just sitting in the mind frame of Madison Butler at the very end of the book. The last chapter is a seat at the table or building your own empire. And one of the questions she posed, and this was long ago, way before I started writing the book, was, does this space deserve me? So I always go into every conversation, us talking, relationships, job, business partnership, does this space deserve me? Should I be here? And if it's not, it's just like a relationship. I've been in relationships 2 or 3. I won't say several because I don't want to sound too out there, but where I know already I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. I'm not telling that person I don't want to be in a relationship with you. I'm getting my ducks in a row. I'm starting to save my money to the side. I'm starting to line up my other opportunity of where else I could go. I'm not going to go, oh, I'm getting divorced. Oh, you suck. This is bad. Okay, I see what you're doing. Now let me get my stuff together. That's what we would do in our, that's what your mom would advise you to do. Nobody's going to say, go in there and start a riot in your household and cause confusion. And then you can't get out of it because you've made the person upset. You would start to strategize. Same thing we do in any relationship. So this is a relationship with your job is no different. It's just another type of relationship. So I think that that's how we have to approach it,
Yeah. And I love the question of, does this space deserve me? I mean, that is, by the way, I gotta tell you something about that question. In one of the last, me, like you and many others tuning in right now, we've had several jobs in our careers, right? And in one of my last jobs, for a few months and actually a few years, towards the end of my tenure there, the very question that I would wake up with every morning was, is this, am I being the best out of me in this in this space? Do they deserve me? And to me, like, all the roads go to Rome. All the roads, all the answers to the question were no. I am not in the right place. And I didn't have the privilege to leave right away, and I had to acknowledge that. And to me, when I realized that was not the right place, I did exactly what you're doing at work, which was, I need to start getting ready for the next thing. This is not for me. No matter what they do now, I already know that this is not for me.
Exactly.
And that, to me, was very powerful. But Elizabeth, I
Yes.
want to go. That's the last chapter of the book.
Yes.
Either finding a seat at the table or you're building your own empire. And I want to get there. But before I want to actually go to the first chapters of the book about finding your own voice, and then we're
Yes.
gonna get there to the end.
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
tell us more about what it means to find your own voice in the context of being a Black woman in corporate America?
Yeah, it's a very good question as
Or
well.
corporate world, by the way, because we have a large international audience here. So I apologize
Yeah.
to everybody. Being a diverse person of color in the context of
Yes.
a corporate world where most
Yeah.
people perhaps look kind of the same.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I always look at it that way as well in a global context because of not being from here, being immigrant. My family's from Caribbean. My dad's side, Cuba, then Jamaica. My mom's side, native to Jamaica. We even have like Jewish background, like a couple generations back, all over the place. And my family's lived all
That's
over Europe.
multicultural.
So yeah, very multicultural. So it's this idea of there is a global diaspora, and all of us Black and brown folk really, because we're not Black, we're all brown. So all Black folk that are brown, indigenous to all these different countries around the world. Typically, if we're going into a space where we don't look like everybody else in that space, the default status is, okay, well, I need to assimilate. I need to have my voice be similar to the majority of the voices in the room so that they can feel comfortable with me, so that I have similarity with them, so that they can see that I'm not a threat. I'm not trying to make things different. I want to go along with the flow, kind of just be a part of this ecosphere that's being built. And what was happening was people were losing themselves. People were losing their natural voice. People were losing their superpower of the world. Black and brown we have as well. So innately, we have a different perspective, and we bring a different culture, a different flavor, a different way of looking at things, and also different perspectives. And those perspectives are just as valuable. Our voices are just as valuable. And what was happening was what women were telling me, Black folk in general, people of color also, this happens where you're going into spaces, and instead of you leaning into what is your truth and your power, because there's so much power in what we've been through, what we've seen, how we look at the world, we're actually muting our voices. In the forward, Lisa Hurley, who wrote the forward, she talks about this idea of us on during the pandemic. It's like you're on mute, right? This whole thing, you're on mute. But we do that throughout our lives. We are constantly saying, we have to mute. Your parents tell you, don't be too outspoken, don't be too, wild, don't do, anything that you're doing that's natural to your culture, or natural to who you are as a person is seen as a threat or seen as something that is unacceptable. And I think that a big part of me kind of leaning into my voice was when George Floyd was murdered. I thought, well, there was nothing that could have been done that would have, he could have been in a 3-piece suit. If someone wants to say that you're not worthy of whatever that is, a position, living, breathing, operating in a normal way that anybody else who is of the majority culture in America, at least, because we know we're the global majority. So the norm really is brown folk, but we've been conditioned to believe that that's not as acceptable as the gold standard, which is always seen as whiteness. And we see proximity to whiteness also being leveraged, where people feel like, okay, the closer I am to that, it will make me more successful. But what's happening is then your insides start to deteriorate because the stress,
your mental
the
health.
anxiety, your mental health. You can't perform because in your mind, you're like, I can't perform unless I'm this, but you will never be that. So that's another thing that James Baldwin talks about, this idea of you're constantly trying to be something that you can never be. So it's almost like setting you up for failure, because if someone says run a race and the race is 100 yards, that's the end. But if someone says run a race, they don't tell you where the finish line is, and then they keep moving the finish line further and further. Every time you get there, they're like, okay, but there's one more thing you need to do. So go jump over this. There's another obstacle. Okay, jump over this. You would start to feel like, and you would start to sit down, Enrique, you would sit on the side of the track like, but how am I ever going to get to the end of this race? I thought it was 100 yards or 100 meters. Now you have me going here. Like your mental would start to break down, because in that point, you're like, this is starting to look like I'm not going to win this race. So think about someone doing that over their whole life. They're running a race. The finish line is there. And then someone's like, oh, wait, that's not really the finish line. Let me move it a little bit further. You would literally start to break down. It would break down your emotion, your will, everything. So what I started to see in terms of our stories is we have to really stand strong in who we are as individuals. We have to really lean into and embrace our natural selves. And most of us are, there's nothing unprofessional about having an accent. You know, if I come on a show and you have an accent, it's just a different accent. I have an accent too. So I don't automatically say, oh, accent, that means that's something that, you know, we see this in the majority culture where a lot of times I always feel like if someone has an accent, that means they speak a whole other language. So they're automatically smarter than you because they speak two languages. But it's like, oh, I don't understand you. Like, what? And that kind of, those microaggressions are very degrading to who we are as individuals, because we know that's our power and our strength. But somebody's gaslighting us and telling us, wait a second, repeat that for me. I don't understand. It's like, you only speak one language. So really you should be a little bit more deaf. You should be humble to the person that speaks two languages. So I think a lot of deconstructing of the narrative that our stories, our truth, who we are as individuals, what we bring, that flavor, our natural ability to do so many things that are not necessarily indicative of the majority culture. We need to lean into those more. The more that I leaned into who I was as an individual, the more confident I was. The more confident I was, the very same people that actually were doing the microaggressions, they started to be enraptured with me, because it's like, this person's confident. This person is not affected by that. It's almost like when people tease you and you're just like, okay, whatever. It's almost like it draws them to you more, because they're like, this person is not, they're not throwing off their game. Look at Kobe Bryant when he had that Black Mamba mentality and people would try to throw the basketball in his face and he was like just chewing his gum, like, okay, that gave him more respect. It's not to say that that wasn't wrong for Matt Barnes to do that. That's bad sportsmanship for you to do that. But at the end of the day, he was not fazed by that. So I think I often feel as though the more that we cannot be fazed by what other people are doing, what they're doing is wrong. It doesn't dismiss it. It doesn't say that we shouldn't have consequences for it, but I don't have the ability to enact consequences. What I can do is make that consequence that you're not going to throw me off my game. You're doing a microaggression. I'll just stop and be like, okay. And I'll sit there and listen. And when you tie yourself in a knot, I come off mute and I'm like, okay, so let me explain it for you so that you understand better. Yeah. That's what I would do in the classroom if a student was doing that and they're 18, 19 years old. So there's no reason why a 50-year-old Karen or whoever that person is that's being rude, you're just being rude. And it's not really for me to understand why you're doing that. It's society, it's education. Maybe your parents told you a Black woman is not worthy of respect. I don't really know what happened in your personal life to make you do that, but it's not my job to figure that out. My job is to stop you in that moment and say, hey, can you let me finish? And then when I'm done, you could pose your question and it'll make more sense to you. So I treat them the same way I treat my students. You have to respect me or I'm not going to respect you.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what is the, in addition to how beautiful it is to lean into who you are, to use your own voice, your own accent, and you can tell that I have my own accent. By the way, I read.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. And recently I read, when I say recently, I mean like within the past week, about, I think it was one of those mainstream media outlets saying, oh, this guy, for years he worked on his accent to be more American because he thought that was the way to success. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, man? I mean, come on now. I mean, do I also have to fake my accent to have a road to success, or what you defined as success? And I was so taken aback by that and so shocked. Yeah. But what I was going to say was that in addition to embracing the beauty of who you are, there's another component to that I don't understand why workplaces don't get it yet. That when they rely on your uniqueness, when they rely on your own beauty, whether it is your accent, the skin of your color, where you come from, the fact that you speak several languages, the fact that you are rowdy or outspoken or quiet and introverted, when they rely on that uniqueness that you bring to the table, they get better as workplaces. And this is not just a hearsay, by the way. Science says that when you take advantage of that diversity in every single regard, not just ethnicity and race, but diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, diversity of language, you get better as an organization. But many companies still don't get that. And I wonder, first of all, why? And second, are we ever going to be able to change them and say, hey, you know what? Instead of trying to make everybody assimilate to what you think the right culture is, take advantage of all these differences and build on top of that. Any thoughts on that, Elizabeth?
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts on that, because my thought process is, if we make a business case which says that everything that you said is the business case for diversity, and they're still not willing to listen, I almost feel like nothing will make people listen because they have something stuck in their psyche, in their mind that tells them this is what it is. And it's almost like arguing with a toddler. You know, if they want a toy, they're going to lay on the ground, cry, kick, scream. It's like you can't reason with certain things. And I feel as though a lot of times with America, there is a certain infantilism, there is a certain amount of entitlement that just says, well, this is just what it is. You just have to deal with it. And I feel as though if that diversity argument where the business case says you will make so much more money doesn't outweigh capitalism, it doesn't outweigh the fact that white men, since the founding of America, have had autonomy, have had control, have had the ability to call the shots. And it's very threatening to think about the Black and browning of America. We know by 2040, majority of people will be of color. We have Latin folk, we have Black folk, we have interracial, we have all this, we have immigrant community, and that is going to be the majority. And you have to imagine, based on what's going on around the country and based on what we see around the world, that people still, even with that little carrot dangling of you will be more successful, it's like, but I'm successful now.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm in control and I'm
Yeah.
already successful, what's another million? If you're Elon Musk, it's like, I already have billions. I don't need another million. Like, where if I'm already the CEO and I'm like, well, I've already, since COVID, I've racked in record profits. Why would I make things more diverse? To have someone come in for my job or to have someone question what I'm doing here? You wouldn't want to do it. So I think it just goes against human nature. For us of the global majority, a lot of times we think about the collective and we think about, well, what would be best for everybody? And not everybody thinks that way. It's sad to say, but the reality of it is that even though companies would improve, they're doing well by doing things the way that they are doing them now. There really isn't a lot of motivation, because we saw a lot of diversity, initiatives and people saying, making those cases, those arguments. And now there's almost a backlash to the point where people are like, nah, it's good on paper, but we just don't want that. You guys know it's just too much. And I think that comes with change. People don't like change, and they especially don't like change that threatens their authority. So I think when you're thinking about the younger generation, the Black and brown young people that are coming up and are going to really have a voice, it's more in their, it's really, to be honest, it's really more in their best interest not to encourage diversity really than to encourage it, because encouraging diversity threatens the status quo. And a lot of times people really want to go along with the status quo. We would love to say that, people want initiative, people want change, people want to see the browning of America is something that people welcome. I've yet to see that on any show. Oh, the browning of America is a good thing. It's almost like, oh, the browning of America. What is that all about? What's about to happen here, guys? So it's not like they're like open arms, like let's get diversity. It's almost like it's a talking point. It's like, we stand for diversity, but what does that actually mean? And I've often said this. I said this in a LinkedIn Live yesterday. If I have to come in, get a consultant, spend millions, billions of dollars, because we know diversity, equity, inclusion has become $1 billion business since George Floyd was murdered. If I have to do that to get you to see, hey, Black and brown folk are coming up and we're good consumers and we're your customer and we should be able to come into your workplace and make it better. And if I have to make a case for that, if I have to come and convince you that you having you just in a brief time of being in your presence, I'm like, you're bringing something that would be valuable. And if we have to convince people of that and bring in charts and flow charts and stats, I mean, when I wrote the book, I think the stats were really more for us to say, okay, we're not just imagining. It's like when you woke up and you were like, this place does not deserve me. In a sense, we know that to be true, but then we psych ourselves out. What are people going to say? What's going to happen? Maybe people think, oh, you got it made, Enrique. Why are you leaving? There's all these things that go through our minds to convince us that what we're seeing is not what we're seeing. That ultimate gaslight of, no, Enrique, we want you to be successful, but you passed me over like 3 times. You think I'm just going to sit here forever? We know that that's the reality. And I think when I combined all that information in the book, it was really more for us to say, okay, we know what's going on. How do we approach this, as opposed to we're going to be able to change? Because if Martin Luther King, his assassination date just passed, the anniversary of that, and Bernice King posted about it, and she often says this, like, my dad was not someone that was loved when he was alive. He died with 68 disapproval rating. I mean, he didn't die. He was assassinated. So when we say he died, that's almost like a misnomer. So I guess the answer to the question is, I would hope that people would see it. I just don't have evidence. And, I'm very big on credibility. People know I love my receipts. I don't have evidence to say that corporate America wants to change. And until I can see it and be able to document something that says they are really committed to it beyond a black square or a promise or a diversity statement that is on the top of the diversity statement, the corporate office is all white people. If that's not going to change, then I have to say that they're not willing to change, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, when George Floyd was murdered back in 2020, and I started seeing all these companies making pledges and putting money into hiring chief diversity officers and whatnot, I gotta say I was optimistic, right? I got a little level of excitement, right?
Me too.
And I was equally excited about the fact that because of the pandemic, horrendous tragedy of sickness and death, the gift of that tragedy was that companies were saying, Elizabeth and Enrique, they are great performers, whether they work in the office or they work from home. So let's do it from home, right? Let's just give them a chance. And over the past 1 week, I have been reading about how most remote jobs are disappearing, and most companies are forcing people back to the office. So I'm trying. I gotta tell right now I'm in a little bit of a disappointment stage because of the work, because of what I'm seeing, which is I thought that the pandemic, the murder of George Floyd, and all the things that happened in 2020, the racial injustices that happened in 2020, were going to change us. And now I feel that we're being pulled back, starting last year, but especially at the beginning of this 2023, we're being pulled back to whatever it was before the pandemic and before all these horrendous racial injustices in 2020. And sometimes I'm like, does it even make sense to try to change things when not even a pandemic, not even the horrendous murder of a human being are changing the way we approach work or the way we operate our businesses. So I try to remain optimistic, by the way, but I'm getting a higher dose of reality these days, and that is a little disappointing. So how do you keep yourself optimistic? Do you keep yourself realistic? How do you keep yourself, Elizabeth, doing the work when you witness that things are changing, and they are changing either too slowly, and in some other cases they are not even changing, but they are going backwards? How do you keep yourself energized around the work that you're doing?
Yeah, conversations like this. I mean, honestly, connecting with like-minded people is how I stay energized, and understanding that for us, we have to be obviously optimistic so that we can go into the work with the mind frame of creating change. But I think my focus as far as change has pivoted from changing workplaces or changing people's minds to focusing on the people that are most affected. When I think about, I'm a survivor of domestic abuse and domestic violence and emotional abuse. So in my situation, a lot of times the victim mentality is you focus on who the person is that's done the abuse. That's like, oh, that person is an abuser. And then it's like that in society in general. The focus is always on, well, why did the lone gunman, why did he do that? Why, it's always on, if we think about even the tragedy that just happened, the automatically it's like, well, let's look at who this person was. What was in their mind? What did they post on? What did they eat for breakfast? Who did they talk to? We're so focused on the abuser or the person that's done violence as opposed to the victims that a lot of times we don't even think about the victims of abuse, of violence, of domestic violence, whatever the case may be. So I think for me, my focus is always going to be on, well, how are people affected by this behavior? What can I do to strengthen those people? How can I be more mindful about helping those people to find a voice, helping those people to feel empowered? The people that are in power already have power. So it's very, I think, challenging to change people's mind frame when they can, like you said, at the click of a button, say, you know what, we tried that work from home thing, that's not working. And I think there is a sense that that's the way that society works, because society is designed for control. I know that because I work in education, and education has not changed in 100 years. We still have students sitting in straight rows. They still walk to lunch in a single file line. If they talk too loud, they get written up and sent to the office. What is that for? It's for control. We don't teach children how they should be taught, which is free-spirited, learn as you go. That Montessori method is something that people think, oh, that's kooky. You must be like a hippie if you send your kids to that kind of school. So we know that for majority of time in this country, The reason for education, for example, was to create a working class. Somebody's got to do the work because the elite people are not doing it. So I think the workplaces have become a lot like that. If we think about the fact that since the pandemic, companies have actually seen record profits, they're laying people off because they overhired. So this idea that they know what they're doing and they're so astute, that also needs to be deconstructed, because a lot of times they're doing things that actually make absolutely no sense. So for us to try to, my mom always says, pick sense out of nonsense. We're trying to pick sense out of nonsense. We're trying to change people that don't want to change. We're trying to get people to act in the collective as we would the global majority. And that's not how they function. They function in a hierarchy and we're at the bottom. So I'm basically begging someone that I'm at the bottom of the hierarchy and saying, hey, will you change so I can get a little bit more scraps? And they're like, I think you have enough scraps. Can you just come back like in about a month and I'll let you know if I have something to give you? For me, I feel as though it is disappointing, but at the same time, it's not unusual. It's what has always happened. It's literally, if we think about this country, every time there is a movement forward for change, there's pushback. We saw that at the end of slavery, 1865, there's Reconstruction. Black folk were actually elected officials. People sometimes don't realize that. We've had Black Congress people since after Reconstruction. We've had people that have done amazing things, but that Jim Crow era, segregation, record lynchings, 4,000. George Floyd is not an anomaly because 4,000 men, women, and children, mostly Black, some white, some different like Italian and Irish, were lynched. Civil rights activists were on the KKK's hit list. So that's what happens. You go a little bit further and it's like, let's get back in your place. Black Lives Matter. Get back in your place. George Floyd. Okay, we'll give you a little bit, but no, you're getting a little bit too beside yourself. CRT, that needs to come out of schools. DEI, we can't have that. We said, we're going to pledge to do this stuff, but can you give us a little bit more time? We need to work on it, get back to the drawing board, see if we can make some moves. Make some moves about what? Just hire me and Enrique. You see, we're very well spoken. We have our degrees, we have our experience. Yeah, but we gotta go back and see if we have budget. You want to work from home? Maybe that's not a good idea. So there is a sense
too much freedom. Too much
freedom. We need to have you in the office. Keep in mind, we're doing the same. We're actually more productive at home than we were in the office. 97% of Black folks said they did not want to go back in the office. We don't want to be there because we don't like the microaggressions. We don't like what's happening there. Maybe we're having micromanagers, whatever the case may be. We want to just work in our own time. For me as a mother, it was like, well, I work after 5 when the kids are sleeping, and I work in tech, so I can work anytime. But it's like, no, I gotta see you to observe you. My friend Lisa Hurley, we talk about this overseer. The idea that there's always been a measure of control. There's always been the ability to look at what you're doing and see an outcome. And if they're not able to do that, there is a sense that, well, if I'm not able to do that, then how am I really in charge? I have to be in charge in order to get my widgets. And if you're not in my presence, how do I know that you're getting me enough widgets? So it's difficult for us to, I think, comprehend that we are cogs in a wheel. We're cogs in the system. Take one out. Enrique said, this is not the place for him. That's fine. We'll just slot Liz in and we just going to keep moving. When I worked in addiction treatment, I used to tell people this. They would say, oh, I can't take time off. FMLA, I get what you're saying. It's guaranteed. It's state. It's a federal law, but if I take time off because I'm an alcoholic or I'm addicted to pain pills, the rumor mill is going to happen at my job. I might get, it's going to get backlash. Suppose I lose my job. And I would always tell people, you know what? If you OD tonight, your job will be posted tomorrow. Yeah. So the idea of being so focused on what a job is doing or your place in an environment or how, they will carry on without you, they won't blink twice and they will move on without you. So I think it's very important for us to secure ourselves. If environments deserve us, they will show us that. And it's just in a relationship. If I got on here and you were late, you were brushing me off, you were just treating me bad, would I be like, well, I'm gonna give Enrique one more chance. I woke up, no makeup on, I'm here, but I'm gonna try one more morning with him and see if he gets it together. I would be like, you know what, I'm never working with Enrique again. But we do this at our job. They're mistreating us, passing us over, talking over us. And we're like, let me stick in there a little bit longer. Yeah. It's the same thing with the global. If it's globally happening in an industry or across corporate America, we're like, let's give them some more reading lists. I'm sure they're going to get it eventually. MLK could have convinced them, but maybe I can't.
Yeah, no, I know. And you know what is, the dose of realistic kind of like perspective here is that we have so much science research data now telling us what we should be doing, and we're not doing what we should be doing.
Right.
And in fact, it's interesting that when I think it was last year when some of these company leaders were talking about bringing people back to the office because productivity and performance and engagement, blah blah blah. I looked at the data of employee engagement over the past 20 years, and these engagement levels have been since almost 2000 to 2021, 2022 at 70%. They have not dramatically changed, nor because of the pandemic, neither in the financial crisis. Nothing has changed those levels. And I am thinking, you had the opportunity to do something for engagement, for productivity, for performance for 20 years, and now you're saying that it's because people are working remotely. Come on, don't gaslight me here. I mean, this is not true. Elizabeth, this was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. You are amazing. Please continue, creating a better world. I think, this is interesting. I know that for me, sometimes it gets disappointing to think that I am alone, but then I go and I talk to people like you, and I'm like, I'm not alone. And then I talk to somebody else, and you're like, we're not alone. We are many. There are many, many of us saying the right things, doing the right things.
That makes you want to cry, Enrique.
Takes time, takes time. But one thing that I try to keep perspective. It's very hard, by the way, but I try to keep perspective on, what? We're now talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we weren't talking that much about it before George Floyd. So that's progress. It's small, but progress.
Yes. And we connect with each other, and that's
we
really
connect with each
important
other.
as well.
That's so beautiful, and that to me matters a lot. So, Elizabeth, please keep doing this awesome work that you're doing. I hope to have you again. Hopefully in the fall to continue inspiring people. But you are awesome. So thank you so much, and thank you everybody in the audience for being so engaged in the conversation. You are also amazing. Please keep doing the right work. Go and check out I Am Not Yelling by Elizabeth by today, and continue to get inspired to do the right thing for the people. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Thank you, Enrique.
Thank you, everybody. I'll see you all soon. Thank you.